et cetera, but they sure take up a lot more bandwidth than what short waves do. Of course, there are some wideband, not short waves, but SSBs. Anyway, that's what I'm looking at anyway. Have you gone back online, or are you still fiddling with the computer?
It should be online now, so there's about a 20-second latency, and I put it online about 30 seconds ago. So you should start seeing our QSO live up there, and I'm just checking all the settings. Looks like my mic's a little hot, so I'm gonna back it down, and hopefully not. That's the hard part, is balancing everything so that you're as loud as my voice when I'm doing it. But there you go. Looks good on my end. Let's see what you hear over there.
Yeah, I was just sitting there listening, and heard the tail end of my previous transmission, and talking. So it's we kind of got the scope narrowed up there, so it's signals aren't as wide as I'm used to seeing. So that's a little unique in the way you've got it set up there. I have mine stretched out almost full screen, so that plus you got another thing there on the side. I'm not sure what that is. I'm not real familiar with that software. I ran it for a while. I got a 6300, and I didn't like that software all that much. So I went back and got me a 5000 and running the was it Power SDR on the 5000, and been running that for, I don't know, a year or more.
Yeah, no, we had a 3000 is what we started with Flex, and really kind of got hooked by the pan adapter and everything, and started just falling in love with seeing what was going around, not just hearing what was going on around. So we dumped the 3000. We had a Yaesu 3000 we dumped, and we put all the money in and got a 6000 or a 6500 at that time. And then a year or two ago, when the 6600s came out, we upgraded to that, and it's an awesome radio. It does a good job, and I like the pan adapter, I think, is the neat things. And HP SDR, is kind of fun. Part of me wants to go and get another 5000 or 3000 just to I like to fiddle, and those radios are fun to fiddle with because you got so many parameters to change and open up and play with. But I opened it up to 3300. It looks like that's about what you're running for bandwidth and stuff. Your signal is very strong. You're 5.9 plus, or right at 5.9 here, but the noise level's a little high here tonight. Over.
Yeah, Roger. Well, you got a good signal on you. You're the other thing on the band. Everybody's been having problems hearing each other because the band's been in such bad shape, but you're coming in, like I say, much stronger than anybody else. It's real interesting that you're coming in as strong as you are, because there was a gentleman on here a little bit ago from down around the Atlanta area. I think he's north of Atlanta, and he was pretty weak, and I got so up, and I was calling up in Rocky Mountain. He was real weak, so everybody was real weak, but you're quite a bit stronger. I suspect the band must be coming back around and able to hear people better than what we were. W4RHY.
W4RHY, November 9, Delta, returning. Yeah, no, I was in here listening to the gentleman earlier, and I think I was testing my setup and was recording them, so that's probably who you were hearing. And, Terry was kind of weak into me, actually. He's normally really, really strong, but I think the band was long. Mike NQW up in North Carolina, he was good into me, and Steve ECC up north of Atlanta, is always very good into me. I mean, we're only about 60, 50 miles apart, so on 80 meters, it's like talking to the neighbor. So I always hear them real well and stuff. But yeah, I think it went long there for a while tonight because I was having a hard time hearing any of those guys when I first turned it on tonight. Over.
Yep. I'm still not seeing any AMers. Like I say, it's very unusual. I think they must have given up for the night.
Yeah, they may have. Who knows? Now that you say that, I really haven't seen many of them for a while. It's maybe just because of the summer, static and stuff like that on the high bands. They've just given it, or on the 80 and 160, they just gave it up because it's too hard to compete with Mother Nature.
Well, I see them all the time. In fact, earlier this evening there were a few on there, and I tuned up there to just see what was going on. There wasn't a whole lot going on, but just tuned up there to see what was happening. And I a lot of times will slide up there and just listen for a minute or two, and occasionally I'll catch a call sign or something like that, but they're usually forelanders when I hear a call sign. So they're in the area somewhere, in foreland area somewhere, more than likely. But I like to just slide up there and listen and just see what's happening. There's some folks that like to interfere with them, but I sure don't have enough power to think about doing anything like that.
Yeah, no, I've put this on AM and made a few contacts with it, but I don't know. I guess I'm not in love with the mode, so I don't do it a lot, and don't really have the settings set right to do it. And I guess just with the double sideband, or whatever you want to call it, AM, I always get worried about what it's going to do to my amplifier. Over.
Yeah, that's another consideration is duty cycle and that kind of thing. You have to have some pretty tough equipment to be able to spread out real wide there for a moment. You have to have some pretty tough equipment to be able to do that. And those guys that are hardcore, I think they're running commercial radio station equipment and have adapted it out to run continuous duty. Well, it's already continuous duty, but they have adapted it to the 80 meter band. Some of them are on 160, but I don't go down to 160 to hear them. But they have set it up to run here and rewound coils, etc. That's getting real hardcore.
Oh yeah, some of those guys are running big time amplifiers and some of that small commercial stuff, and I think they, those are people who do it for the love of it, because I don't have that much time or money to put into that mode, I guess, because it's a lot of setup and a lot of maintenance keeping everything running. So I just don't do it, but. I do like 80 and 160. I do a lot of contesting during the contest season, and I do a lot of the night work at the contest station that I work with. And, I spend a lot of time on 40, 80, and 160 in the evenings and night and overnight. And I just love doing some of the things, work in Europe and Africa and the Middle East on 80 and 160. In the middle of the night. It's just, I get a kick out of it. So I do enjoy these bands and just coming up here and sitting and listening for what's coming in at what time, so that when I get in front of the mic when it really matters at a contest, I know where to be, when to be there.
Well, I just enjoy watching the radio on the computer myself. It gives a whole different perspective of what you can see up and down the band and that kind of thing. I got a 7300 sitting here that also has one of these scopes on it, but it's not nearly as detailed as what I can put on the computer screen. So I'll stick to that. The 7300 is a kind of a backup radio, W4HY.
W4HY. Is it HY or RHY?
Romeo Hotel Yankee.
Yeah, that's what I got in the log. That's what I thought it was. That 7300 is a good radio. It makes good sound, and for the money, you can't go wrong. But the pan adapter and stuff is not nearly what you can get off these Flex or Anons. When you plug them in, you just get so much more detailed information. You can see a lot more band, and adjust some of the parameters on them so that you can make them, kind of tailor them to what you like to see. So I do agree. The 7300 has a nice pan adapter. The Anons, the Flexes have great pan adapters.
Now on your 6500, that's a network interface. Do you have does that plug into a switch and then the computer plug into the same switch, or how do you have that interface? I know for the short time that I operated my 6300, I think I just plugged it in directly into the computer, but that wouldn't be the ideal way of doing it in the long run, I don't think.
Yeah, the only thing doing it that way is you can't get your updates live. When you switch versions of software, when Flex issues an update or something like that, you can't update that way. But I've just got it plugged in. I've got a network router here at home that does Wi-Fi and everything, and I've got a switch on it, so I've got the ability to plug about 12 devices in. I got several computers and routers and some audio gear and just other TVs and stuff like that. So I've got 12 ability to plug in 12 devices. So I just plug the computer into one, the radio into one, the other computers into one, so I can sit at any of the 3 workstations here in the shack and operate the radio local. And then if I'm away from home, I can do it on my iPad or another, even on the computer. But normally when I'm out of the house, I don't take the computer with me. I'll just carry an iPad, and I can hook to it through the SmartLink, which is a piece of Flex software that puts them online, so you can operate them remotely. So I can sit in my car at the grocery store while the wife is shopping, or when I'm out shopping, just walking down the aisles, and start working and talking to people, doing it that way. So that's one of the things I like about the 6000 series is you have so many different options for connected. And I think your 7300 does the same thing, that you can just natively put them on the air remote and talk anytime, anywhere. And it's a pretty cool little feature.
Yeah, I know when I was operating the 6300, they kept talking about coming out with this new piece of software, and they kept putting it off and kept putting it off. They had a date and went beyond the date, and they were charging an amount of money for the update, whatever you want to call it. Being they were charging, I think I'd have to call it an upgrade. But anyway, when it finally came out and started seeing everything that it would do or not do, I decided right then that it wasn't going to do me a lot of good, because I don't do remote. I don't get out of the house enough to even justify setting up anything that works remote. I go to the doctor, and I go to the pharmacy, and I go to the grocery store, and that is just about it. I am disabled, so I don't get out a whole lot. It's not worth it to me to upgrade the software for remote operation like what they had set up. So I did not go any further with that. There was something else I was hoping for. I forget what it was now, but there was something else I was hoping the software would do, and it ended up that it would not do. They did not improve that function that I was looking for. So just did not mess with it at all. Did not update the radio. I did put I think it was the auto tuner. I think I put the auto tuner in it because it did not have that in it when I got it. And I bought one of those and put that in it. And that was the only upgrade I did to it. W4RHY.
W4RHY, November 9, Delta returning. Yeah, no, the 6300, it was a good radio. It wasn't, my dad had a 6300, and when I played with my 65 or even my 6600 now and compared it to his 6300, it just wasn't quite as good as that. It had the 65 and 66 had a better processor in it, and I think that made a difference. The 6300 was good. It just didn't have quite enough power, I don't think. But I upgraded him to a 6400 now, and that's a much better radio. It's got almost the same processor as what the 6500 in, and it does a good job for him now. So I'm much happier with the performance of that radio. And yeah, version 2 came out, and I don't remember what some of the shortfalls were that it didn't do, but it does pretty much everything. There's 2 features that I'd really like to see added that needs to be adjusted, or that I'd like to get adjusted, and that's remote push to talk. Because right now you pretty much have to run Vox, or you can kind of trigger your Mox key with a flex control. But there, it needs to get a push to talk that will work remote. And the other thing is, there's no side tone over CW when you're doing what is it? It's CWX or something. I'm not a big CW op, but there was a side tone issue that I think the contesters would like to see. But, it pretty much does everything. They're up to version 3 now. And version 3 offers remote control. Well, not remote control. That was version 2. But it offers simultaneous control. So you and I could share my 6600. You could log into Slice, with the 66. I could have Slice A and B, and you could have Slice C and D. And as long as we're operating, like it's great for a contest situation. If you're working together and you're in banding and I'm running, you can jump in and we can be on the same band and same antenna and doing the same thing. It's not much good use for rag chewing in that when I'm transmitting, you can't transmit. And depending on what band and antenna configuration you're using, you may not be able to hear while I'm transmitting. So it just depends how you configure it. If you're on 20 with a different antenna setup and everything, you can hear what's going on while I'm talking on 40, but you can't talk until I stop talking because there's only the one transmitter. So depending how you configure it, it's it's good for the contesting and in-banding operations, but not much use other than you can share radios with other people and still listen, I guess, but not necessarily transmit over.
Sounds like you could set up a stacker radio somewhere with multiple antennas and do just multiple bands at the same time with something like that, but I may be misconstruing the capabilities of the radio.
I think they're going to get to where you can do some of that stuff. I mean, right now it's like one of the contest stations I work with, we operate remote. Their radios are located up in the Northeast, closer to Europe. We usually all hang out down here in Georgia, but when we get on in remote contests, we're all operating remote. So we're operating radios that are 1,500 miles away from us. And we've got full control of the amplifiers, the antennas, the radios, everything like that. And we run them in banding type situations and stuff like that. So it's pretty sophisticated operation, but that's essentially what it is we got 3 radios, 3 towers, and about 20 antennas, maybe more than that, probably more than that, up there that we can choose from at any given time. So we can get a lot of power and a lot of signal out on the air if we need to.
Do you have that flex amplifier?
We don't have any of them currently in the inventory for what we did. We did have one, and we're playing with it, and we got it right maybe before it was released or as it was released, and it had a few issues. We had to send it back and get it tuned up again, and the owner just really didn't want to mess with it because it wasn't fully, I think it was pre-release software that we had, and he just didn't want to put it in a must-have contest situation until it was proven ready, and I think they're there now, but right now we don't have any of those in the inventory, but I have played with them.
Yeah, it looks like a pretty cool amplifier. I really haven't looked at it all that close, but when they were first announced it, I read over the specs and that kind of thing, and it looked like it was pretty cool. I wish I could remember what I was hoping the new software would do. There was a shortfall in some function of what that 6300 would do, and I was hoping that the new version of software was going to fix it. And when I got to reading, after the software came out, when I got to reading what the software, the list of things that it would do, I understood that it didn't do anything for me and it did not fix what the issue I was concerned about. So as a result, I decided that I was not going to put the money into it. The only thing that it would do for me would be increase the resale value if I ever decided to sell the radio. And I still have the radio set in here. I got a 3000, a 5000, a 6300. All of them set here. The only one in use is the 5000. And I just use it basically here on this band, and that's about it.
Yeah, was it an antenna issue with antenna 1 and antenna 2? Was that the issue that you were talking about with the 6300?
It could have been, because that's one of the reasons I got the 5000 is it has an antenna 1, antenna 2 on it, and I can switch back and forth between them, so it could have been.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. There was an issue that everybody was just all hot about back in the day. I mean, one of the reasons I got the 6600 versus, staying with my 6500 is the 6600 has two of those spectral capture units, where the 65 and 64 and 6300 just have one. So where I can have actually two live antennas at a time selected. With the 63, 64, and 6500, you only have the one spectral capture unit. So there's, some disappointment in that, it's hard to have two real, true live antennas because you can only bring one stream through the digitizer at a time. So that's one of the reasons I got the 6600 is it and the 6700 have two spectral capture units that you can capture two antennas simultaneously. Over.
Roger. Well, I don't remember in particular if that was it or not. I just know that there was an issue, and I was not real up on the unit because of it. And the 5000 does what I want it to do. So it must have had something to do with the antenna or something along those lines. I really don't remember exactly what it was, but the 5000 does what I want it to do, and I don't have to muck around with it too much. There is an issue with the way the antenna switch on this, and I kind of had to change things around a little bit to accommodate the way that the antenna switch on here, but it really I don't really have any problem other than just making sure I have the right antenna on the right connector on the back.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I want to talk to the owner of the contest station that I work at, and I want to run a couple of things by him, with these flex radios, because we run flex radios at that station as well, is talk to about how to maybe set them up with the A and Bs a little bit differently, so that we can maybe get a little more use out of the radios and up the QSO rates a little bit. So I'm going to chat with him on that, and that it just has to do with using which radios to utilize for what and which tower and stuff like that. So the Flex gives you a lot of options that way. So we're doing, but those 5000s, several of the guys on this frequency run those 5000s. Terry up in Rocky Mount, I think he runs an Anon mostly, but I think he still has a 5000. NQW Mike up in North Carolina around Charlotte area, he is usually on his 5000. He has one he runs quite a bit, and they all sound very, very good. I mean, that 5000 is a dynamite radio. Over.
Oh, yeah, I'm quite happy with it. And if it wasn't, I'd have something else online. Like I say, I got multiple radios here that I can put online, and the 5000 is the king of the heap at the moment. I was able to pick one up secondhand from a guy out in Washington State, I think it was, and had a good interaction with him. Sent him the money via PayPal and took a chance and sent him the money with the one with the insurance. Took the money and run, and I wouldn't have had any recourse, but I took a chance with him, and it all worked out. I probably shouldn't have, because there's a lot of people that have been duped on some of those sites, but had a good interaction with him. Got the radio in. The radio was in the exact shape that he said it was in, and had all the accessories with it, second receiver and antenna tuner, and drilling was in it. It all worked like it was supposed to. The only thing I had to do was I had to recalibrate it, because it was all frequency a bit, and that was pretty easy to figure out. I went in and did a recalibration with WWV and got it on frequency, and from that point on it worked just fine.
Yeah, no, you know, I recalibrate my 6600, probably once a month or so, and I mean, I think it's just good to do it every now and then. Even though technically these are solid state and you don't have transistors and resistors and things that deviate as much as some of the old tube radios, yeah, I still do it, but it doesn't usually change the number too much on the offset, but good deal. But anyway, you're starting to fade a little bit, and I'm going to run downstairs for a little bit and chat with the wife before she heads to bed, and I think I'm going to play radio a little bit more tonight. But just do appreciate you giving me a call. I thought I heard somebody out there, so I put out a call, and you were there. And thank you for watching the channel. I like to periodically I leave this thing on overnight and just park it on a frequency, and that way people can see that it's on the air and do audio tests for themselves or something like that, and say nobody's there. I'll just talk to the radio and listen to myself a few seconds later, go back, make some adjustments, listen to it a few seconds later. So sometimes you may see it on the air and nobody's there, so feel free to use it and use yourself to give it a free tune-up on the audio settings there. Over.
All right, I appreciate that. I probably need to do exactly that. I don't think this radio is set ideally for this particular radio. I'm not using the intended settings, but yeah, I may do that if my hearing will permit it. But yeah, I appreciate the offer, and I do have you on my list here, and I see when you come up, and there is a delay between the time that you go live and when YouTube notifies me, plus the time it takes me to find you after YouTube notifies me to find that notification. But yeah, I've got you on my list here.
Alrighty, sorry about that. I hit the wrong button and changed the frequency there. Had to come back to it. But anyway, we'll chat with you later, and thank you for listening and giving me a call, and we'll look for you again. W4, man, I really got things messed up on my logbook here. Let me go over there. I got it. I don't have it in the log. Give me your call one more time real quick.
Yeah, Whiskey 4 Romeo Hotel Yankee.
There we go. We got you in the log now. And I know I talked to you about probably 2 weeks ago. It was in one of my runs on either 40 or 20. I don't remember which one, but I do remember the call. So it's a pleasure chatting with you again, and we'll look for you later down the log. So have a good night. Chat with you later. W4RHY, November 9, Delta Delta is going to go downstairs and go QRT for a little bit.
NC4TJW4RHY.
B4 teacher.